As we begin to explore the play literature, it's very important that we define what play is and what it is that we're looking at. Now, when we look at the play literature and we look at what it says, we've got to be very careful because there are many schools of thought who are exploring play. We've got anthropology, sociology, psychology, and of course the recreation and tourism field is also exploring play. Child development looks at play. So it really depends on the school of thought that's looking at play and how they're going about using it. Now, as I've done research over the last 14 years, my research has shown that play comes down to some characteristics. Rather than trying to give you one definition of play, it's important that we look at play in terms of characteristics. And once we do that, the notion of play begins to open itself up a bit more than just looking at it as something that children do. For example, the first notion of play that we need to look at is intrinsic motivation. Now, intrinsic motivation is motivation that's coming from inside. It's an internal drive from within me, and the reason that this drive is coming forward is simply because when I participate in this particular activity, I feel good. It's fun. I enjoy myself. So intrinsic motivation, you're not having to pay me. You're not having to bribe me. I'm doing it simply because it's fun and enjoyable. Now, the opposite side of that is extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is just that: praise, rewards, bribe, money. It's coming from externally, it's coming from outside of me, and therefore that's going to help mold and shape my behavior or motivate my behavior. When it comes to play, we want the motivation to be intrinsic. That's not to say that if we start a notion of play under extrinsic philosophies, that it can't become intrinsic, but without a doubt, we want play to start intrinsically. So therefore, again, the motivation being that it's coming from inside me. Now, the second notion of play that I want you to focus on is the fact that we want to focus on the process of play, not the product, but the process. When we focus on the process of play, there's two very different ways of being and ways of engaging with children. For example, if I'm focused on the process, I'm going to be looking at how I've set up my activity. What kind of interactions are the children having? Are they sharing materials? Are they talking with one another? What are they talking about? There's so much that happens along the process of designing something that if I'm just focusing on what the end result is, what that picture looks like in the end, I miss out on so much. For example, if I want the product to look a certain way and I'm leading my children through a mask exercise and I'm saying, here's your materials, build your mask, but meanwhile I come along and I start correcting my kids and say, hey, wait, that's not where the nose goes. You know that the nose goes right here in the middle of your face, not over here. Or maybe I have a child who is putting purple hair on their mask, but they in fact have blonde hair. And here I am saying, no, that's not how it looks. Your hair's blonde. I'm focused on the product, and I'm losing sight and all the value that's happening through along the way. Creativity is such an important component of development, just as important as all of those other Olympic circles, but we don't foster it enough. So absolutely, when I focus on the process, I'm allowing for the creativity to unfold. I'm allowing for the child to share and enjoy in the experience of the activity along with their peers. So much can be said when we focus on the process of play versus the product. Now, another example for you folks can be is if you're focusing on your grade. In this class, you want an A, and you're going to focus on that A, and that's all you are consumed with day in and day out is getting an A in this class, that you're not allowed to focus in class when you're there. You're not present when you're there. You're not able to listen to the dialogues that we're having, and you're so consumed with getting this A that in the end you don't get the A, and you absolutely did not enjoy the journey and the process along the way. So when we focus on the process of play, the end result and the product will be absolutely something that we will relish in. So focus on that process of play. Another aspect of play that I want you to focus on is the fact that play gives players freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to engage. I can go play in the block area. I can go play in the dramatic play area. I have the freedom to choose. Now, as important as freedom is in the notion of play, what I want you to understand is that we've also got to allow our players perceptual freedom. Now with perceptual freedom, we're allowing our player to tip the hat, to take the hat off in fact, and put on a suspension of reality or a pretend hat, and now they've got an entirely new reality. We've given them the freedom to turn anything into whatever they want. So absolutely, we want to give our players that perceptual freedom to explore ideas, to explore what they see around them, because through play, children are able to make sense of what it is they are seeing around them. So absolutely important that we focus on that. Another important attribute that we want to focus on with play is we want it to be spontaneous. Now, for those of us adults who have very busy schedules, being spontaneous is a tough notion for us, but children live in the moment. They live in the here and now. When they walk into a bank, they don't look around at the bank and say, before I go in, I'm going to play with those ropes. A child will walk into the bank, see what's available to them, and start occupying themselves and maybe playing with the rope. Maybe they're running in circles around the pole. Spontaneity, it's important. I saw a little boy one time walking down the street, happened to do 2 big circles, and then all of a sudden kept on walking. Nobody told him to spin circles. He did it just because he wanted to. It was a spontaneous, spur-of-the-moment kind of a thing. So we want play to be spontaneous. Again, going back to you folks who like to crumple your paper and throw it into the wastebasket, spontaneity. Nobody's telling you to do it. Nobody's paying you to do it. You're doing it just because it's there and I can do it and it felt good. So again, we want it to be spontaneous. Last but not least, an important attribute of play is that it's non-literal. If something is non-literal, that means it's not real. It's pretend. We're just joking. We're just playing with you. Come on, don't take it so seriously. That's what play is. It's non-literal. And some will say non-literal, some will say fantasy. Some will say imagination. Some will say suspension of reality. Some will say pretense. Don't get caught up on the term. Just understand what that term is trying to say. It's saying that it's not real. We're suspending our reality for the moment, and this is our real reality. Now, real is subjective. It's real to the player, but you and I on the outside can look at the player and say, well, that's not real, but it's real to the players. Because again, we've given them the gift of that perceptual freedom. We're allowing them to choose their activity, so therefore they have intrinsic motivation. And because we're allowing them to choose their activity, we have the last characteristic of play, which is actively engaging. Actively engaging means I am actively involved. I'm hands-on with my activity. In fact, more times than not, we start losing sense of time. Time seems to go by faster than we thought it was, and it's because we're so engrossed in the activity. We're not just passively sitting by, letting things happen, letting players come in and out. We take an active role in our play, and we're actively choosing, we're actively making decisions. And if we're playing with a group of children and we decide, this isn't for us, we have the freedom to leave and go somewhere else. So absolutely, when we look at the characteristics of play and we look at them for what they are, we begin to realize that play is not just for small children, that play is not just for elementary school children, that when we look at those notions of play, we begin to realize that play is so much more than ever thought possible. Now, many will question what the benefits of play are, and it is easy at a cursory glance to look at a child playing and think, they're just wasting time. We're just pacifying them in the moment. But that's not the case. There is so much more that is going on in activities, and when we carefully plan them and when we carefully observe our children and learn what their interests are, we can design our curriculums around their interests, which allows us an extra foot in the door to help them be excited about learning. All too often we get off topic and we try to tell them what they should be learning instead of trying to foster their own innate interest. So the benefits of play are endless, but absolutely play is the way that children assimilate the world, the way that they try to understand what their world is and what it's all about. So absolutely, when we observe children at play, it gives us a window into how they are looking at the world, how they are seeing the world. And when a child is playing with a group of children, if I'm knowledgeable and cognizant on development, I can look at certain behaviors that a child's exhibiting, and I can know developmentally where that child fits on the continuum. So absolutely, play is valuable for not only children and their own learning, but for us adults and teachers who use it as our tools to help guide them in school as well. The benefits of play are truly endless, and I look forward to your own journey through the play literature this semester. Thanks for listening.